and also approval of the Mueller Annual Service Agreement.
Mr. Supervisor, there is just one minor correction to the minutes as they're drafted. There was
Okay.
a typo on Mrs. Rose's name.
Yes.
So that just,
Ross versus Rose,
yeah.
and I think it made its way through, but I had actually flagged it when,
Well, we had sent it before.
right,
We
Terry
already-
had sent it down for me to sign, I caught it, but it had made it into the board packet, so unless you wanna change your name, we'll correct it to Ross instead of Rose. So I'd be looking for approval of the consent agenda with the correction, to the regular board meeting minutes of February 27th as discussed.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right,
Can I also make a comment also?
yeah,
I was very happy to see the difference in the Granicus, the meeting management software, the change that animated to that to reduce the video conferencing and things along that line. I think that was a good move, so thank you for that.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to
Save
leverage,
money.
the work Mr. Tominello did to save us money on the other side. And we're also actually, we're adding another service so residents can sign up to get any agendas to our planning, zoning, and our board emailed to them. So that's on our website now as part of this update, so.
Good, perfect, thank you.
yeah, I think we are in that phase where little by little, technology gives us these kind of, sometimes freebies, you know? Now, the change to the Granicus was an effort on your part, and I appreciate that, but my point is we're, starting to see, we were talking about, meters and meter reading software and things like that. We're starting to see more and more of these little improvements, so that's good. All right, we've got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Olgiati. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thanks, you, board. Next is item B, approval of the regular agenda. Board members, we do have two changes to the agenda as it was presented. I'm asking to remove item F2. We need to correct, Eagle has us down for an inaccurate fee. And we'd like to add item D3, which is approval of the repair to the brakes for our 2006 Pierce Arrow XT apparatus. So be looking for a motion to approve the agenda with those two revisions.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
All right. Got a motion by Mr. Olgiati with support by Mr. Brado to approve the agenda with the two revisions. Any discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, board. Next on our agenda is announcements. The Harrison Township Firefighters Local 1737 is bringing back their annual Easter egg hunt for Saturday, April 1st at 10 a.m. The event is for Harrison Township residents, ages 12 and younger. It'll be held at the Lance Cruz High School football field, rain or shine. Just a reminder, on the first full week of each month, GFL Environmental Services will collect properly prepared brush at the curb or road right-of-way on your regular collection day. Residents will be required to place trimmed brush and branches at the curb or road right-of-way. Please place the butt ends of the branches toward the street, neatly stacked with branches not exceeding 2 to 3 inches in diameter or 12 feet in length. Yard waste will be collected starting, it says until April 1st. I think that's starting April 1st. Yeah, starting April 1st of each year and ending on Friday of the second full week in December. Our treasurer's office has and is selling discounted Metro Park passes available to residents for $35, which is a $5 discount. Our annual Earth Day spring cleanup is scheduled for Saturday, April 22nd. Details to follow. Please note that township emails and website has switched over to the more secure mi.gov domain. You can still access all township staff by using the first initial and last name followed by harrisontownshipmi.gov. No spaces or dashes. For more information on these, as well as all other township events, you can call the supervisor's office, 586-466-1445. Visit our website at harrisontownshipmi.gov or follow us on Twitter at harrisontwpmi. Board members, I'd also like to provide a brief update on some grant or funding opportunities. You may recall that a year ago, we were successful in securing $1 million to begin some of the preliminary work for the sanitary sewers in the center of the township. When that initially came out, this kind of this whole funding model, they were kind of referred to as earmarks. The next round of that sort of congressional funding is known as CDS, or Congressionally Directed Spending. So at this point, our U.S. Senator Gary Peters, his office has reached out saying that they do have some funding opportunities. You kind of go through a application process, get letters of support, and submit it, and it's I don't know if I'd call it a lottery. I don't know really. They don't really give you a lot of details on how they select it. But for the application to Senator Peters' office, we are working toward asking for $1 million grant to help fund the pedestrian bridge over the spillway at Jefferson. And I know maybe 2 meetings ago, we approved a resolution applying for a TAP grant. So we're just trying to do everything we can. It's about a $2.4 million project. We used to be in Representative McLean's office, or district, and her office reached out asking if we wanted to apply. And I reached back to the staffer saying we're no longer in that district. We're now in John James District, but we were one of the few communities that got chopped out because it was mostly the thumb. So I did reach out to Representative James about a month ago, kind of saying, hey, look, they're applying. Is there something we're missing? He said, well, it's coming. Don't worry about it. Last Tuesday, I got an email saying that the application was due this Wednesday. So I'll let the board know that I had asked staffers about whether or not it's a good idea to reapply for the same project twice. And it sounded like they said, you can do whatever you want, but we would recommend against it. So instead of looking at funding for the sanitary sewers in the center of the township, we identified a section of our path system along South River Road from Bridgeview to Lance Cruz. That would connect a lot of those neighborhoods in the center of the township, not only to South River, but kind of get a lot of maybe walkers or bikers closer to the schools along Lance Cruz and Reimold. So Wade Trim is helping us with that. The county is supportive of that. It's a part of their master plan. So I'll be submitting an application regarding that expansion of our bike path system, kind of hoping we get funds, but just letting everybody know in case it comes down, that something we're going after. So, any other board announcements?
I just want to re-mention, residents can sign up to receive notifications of any time we update minutes, agendas, or anything else on our website. So, if in the past you'd signed up to get them emailed to you, we're going to reach out to everyone to try and move them over to getting it just automatically through the system. It'll save us time. I'll probably add board members' emails to the same way I send you out agendas. I'll just update it so that way when something gets pushed, it'll push automatically to anybody else.
And that's a Granicus function?
Yeah, so it's available to anybody to get that home.
Okay, any other announcements? I see we have our county commissioner here. Mrs. Zinner, would you care to make any announcements?
Hello, everyone. First of all, I'm really excited to be here when all the firemen are here. Congratulations. Fire Chief. Thank you, Supervisor. It's interesting that I was able to come tonight because at the board meeting today, the Director of Roads was talking about the TAP grant. And spillway. So we voted on it today, but Thursday is full board, really what's happening. And today seemed to be a busy day for me, especially Candace had invited me to one of the drain board meetings, which that's not usually where I go. I actually Zoomed in because she said, I'd like you to be in with us. So I assumed she meant by Zoom. And she said, Barb, I can hear you, but I can't see you. I just didn't realize I was supposed to actually attend the meeting. She said, well, where are you? I said, in Harrison Township. Well, can you come to the meeting? And I said, well, yes, because I knew she wanted to be part of the conversation. She has been actively working with, in regard to the Ling bias situation. We all know what it's like. It's all about. But we really don't have documentation of what it is. And so she's been working with the Army Corps, finding out what it is. She and I have been talking. Of course, that gentleman from Place now.
One of the condo associations.
Yes, condo associations has been, he's been to the board meetings and several times. And I just love it when residents take their freedom and speak up. That's what we're supposed to do. So anyway, that's what started it all off with me. So anyway, she had, working with the Army Corps, and now have, with some of the money from the county, we have a 2-year study coming. The study what Ling Baya really is, because once you know what it is, you know how to deal with it. So we're really excited about it. So I went to the board meeting and got to vote on that, which was interesting. Very nice of her to invite me to that, because I didn't have to go at all. I mean, so there'll be a press release tomorrow, I believe. So it's really wonderful. I had a call from the Blue Sky Mobile Home Park. Drove all around there and saw what the situation was. And then I went to the end where the water was, where the lake was, and I said, animals aren't living here, not coming up to the grass anymore. And I looked at all the dark stuff, and I said, well, I'll tell you why, because that's Ling Baya. I'm pretty sure that's all dark stuff is all Ling Baya. Anyway, Scott said it's just a monster. So hopefully we'll be able to get that cleared up. I said, you know, I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for so many decades. And I said, I'm used to immediate situations like these gentlemen, ladies that probably work there too. I'm used to immediate situations. Waiting 2 years for me is killer. So I said, oh, the faster it can start, and I don't know when it's going to start. I forgot to get that information. The faster it starts, the faster we'll find out the answer. That's probably the highlight of my day, which is a great day.
Yeah.
Starting really great, really great. So good luck to everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I had recently heard an update on what, I guess it's now not referred to as Ling Baya. They've determined that it's something very similar, and they gave us the Latin term for it, but, you know, it's just an algae that's washing up on the shore and kind of creating land, and we can't ignore it. It's creating shoreline. And so we're certainly appreciative to the Army Corps and to the Public Works official, Candace Miller, for getting funding to find out just what this thing is and how we can control it. So, any other announcements? All right, now let's move to the good stuff here. Item D1, Firefighter of the Year. Chief, I'll look to you to take over.
Good evening, board and guests. It is my distinct honor this evening to announce our Harrison Township Fire Department Firefighter of the Year. This year's Firefighter of the Year is Battalion Chief Jason Groth. You could please stand. Professional, honesty, integrity, leadership, excellent work ethic, compassionate. He motivates others by saying things like chop, chop, and move it, move it. And Jason is transparent. He is very passionate about his service to the community and to the fire service. Beyond all of that, Jason is very humble. And I can tell you that Jason would much rather give this award to every other firefighter on his platoon than accept it himself. And so he wasn't really happy with me when I announced that he was Firefighter of the Year, but he has graced us with our presence, and he's honored to be a part of the process. So I can tell you that Jason has had an incredible career. He's 26 years in, and when most people are winding their career down, as he is, they don't necessarily have the drive that someone like Jason does. So Jason has had this incredible list of things to do, and he's in hyperdrive. And in the 2022 year and into the 2023 year, he's really stood out. He's gone above and beyond. Our mantra at Harrison Township Fire Department is to leave Harrison Township Fire Department better than you found it. And he's done that every year that he's worked for Harrison Township Fire Department. We can all be very proud of him, to have him serving as a battalion chief and every other rank that he's held throughout his career. So it is my distinct honor to give him this award for Firefighter of the Year, number 3, Harrison Township Firefighter. You like to say anything?
Thank you, everybody, to the guys that came out to support me. I do appreciate it, and I'll be real short here. It does go by really fast, as some of you already know. And if there's one thing I'm really realizing at this stage of my career, and I think, I emailed the chief last couple weeks ago this, that I am really just truly a reflection of the people around me. You can't be there 26 years and still be happy at a place unless the guys and the people around you are positive, doing a good thing, doing the right thing by the township, by each other, and by the residents. And I wouldn't be here if that wasn't happening. So I can honestly say I'm truly a reflection of everybody around me at that station who drive me to come in every morning. So I greatly appreciate you guys.
There's a bunch of things I could say, but we'll leave it at, the chief did a great job, so thank you very much, and thank you. And thanks to all the guys, I mean, shoot, if you're gonna have a heart attack, this is the place to be right now, man.
We have an AED too.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
So is there a natural break coming out? Because I'm sure there's guys that need to work.
You guys are,
Yeah, if you're asking for, permission to be at ease. No, you're fine, yeah, absolutely, thank you. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
You guys.
All right, next on our agenda is also from the fire department regarding thermal imaging cameras. Chief?
Yes, sir. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So we, as a department, demoed 2 different thermal imaging cameras. One was a FLIR, one was a Bullard. I personally have 28 years worth of experience with the Bullard, and ultimately our firefighters decided to purchase the Bullard. And so there was 2 certified Bullard vendors in the state of Michigan. We received quotes for both of those. These thermal imaging cameras are to go on our squads. So we never had thermal imaging cameras on our squads. We had them on our engines. We changed operations after I had been appointed as fire chief. And so the way we operate now is our squads also respond on all fires. Obviously, they've got their firefighting gear and equipment. They're able to step up. They will be able to step off of these rigs with the very best thermal imaging cameras that we have. And that rescue that I mentioned at the Village Green Apartments, thermal imaging camera was utilized. It was our best one. It was off of engine 1. And so what we plan on doing is putting our best thermal imaging cameras on our 2 brand new squads, and then we will put the 3rd one on engine 1, and then we'll take the one off engine 1, which is our best one so far, and we will put that on our reserve squad. So that's kind of what the game plan is. Also, in addition to, I had written a grant through MMRMA, our insurance company, and we were awarded a grant of $5,000 to put towards this purchase. So 2 quotes. It went up a little bit from what I quoted last year. Was quoted last year from West Shore. It was $19,926 in the fall, and now the current price is $20,667. And that's the bundle package. It's got the charger and everything in it, everything that we need to start working.
All right, any discussion, questions, board members? Hearing
Make a
none.
motion to approve the purchase of 3 Bullard QXT thermal imaging camera bundles at a cost of $20,667 with $5,000 to come back from the MMRMA grant.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Brado. We already have thermal imaging cameras, so this isn't necessarily an addition of technology, but just kind of some redundancy, for lack of a better word, so that when we show up, guys who show up on a squad have tools as well.
So in 1994, when I first started my fire service career, these Bullard thermal imaging cameras were $20,000 a piece. And the technology has improved 4 times since then. The resolution is incredible. I was telling Adam Witt that when you utilize this camera, the recovery time is incredible. And so it tells you the temperature within the room, and it's just a fantastic tool. So really imperative to have for search and rescue.
Absolutely.
So Chief, are these mounted on the truck and they can be removed or be brought into a building, or how exactly do they
Yes,
work?
so the chargers are on the squads or on the truck, and it's got a 10-year battery that's within it, so you aren't changing the battery. It's held in the charging unit, and then guys clip it onto the exterior of their gear, and it's basically just like a telescope. So, they go to use it, they pick it up, they're looking through a viewfinder, camera end on the other end, the lens is on the other end. And then they just drop it, they're, shock-proof and obviously heat-resistant.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Brado. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next is item D3. This was an addition to our agenda, and it's regarding some, initially, the chief reached out saying, hey, look, we've got some brake issues with the 06 Pierce Arrow. We have an estimate here from R&R, who is the company that we do use for our repair work. Because of the nature of wanting to get this piece of equipment back into the rotation for our equipment, the chief did ask for preliminary emergency approval from the 3 full-timers, I think on Friday. We said, yep, get the work started. But knowing that we were meeting on Monday, it seemed appropriate to add it to the agenda and ultimately get board approval for this repair work. So I don't know if there are any questions or if there's a motion to approve this repair at $6,201.52.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
And, just kind of store this in the back, this is the same piece of apparatus, so we just put a trans and a rear main seal in, but, if in your own personal fleet at home, if you've got an 06 car, chances are you accept the fact that you're probably not making payments on it, but you know that from time to time you've got to spend a little bit of money to do repairs to keep it functioning, so we're no different. Any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on the agenda, item E1, introduction of an ordinance to amend Articles 6, Section 6.01B, 10 of the Charter Township of Harrison zoning ordinance to amend the waterfront fencing requirements with repealer, severability, and effective date. Planning Commission, you may recall, we talked about the majority of changes in updating, so did you call these perfecting amendments, Mr. Tamanello?
Yes.
Yep. But when we got to some of the issues about this waterfront fence and the block and some of the things that we've talked about at prior meetings, I believe we removed this section because the Planning Commission wanted to go back. The PC-ZBA secretary said that the Planning Commission held their meeting at their February 16th, 2023 meeting, and they're recommending that we approve these amendments and language changes. So I know there's a proposed motion. I don't know if there's any comments from our PC liaison.
Yeah, so the only thing I want to say is we went back and forth on this motion, and I know this was sort of tied to an issue that we had probably late last year. And basically what we dealt with, is we dealt with the appearance portion of the ordinance. We really didn't get into, because we had ordinances that actually covered height in the backyard, obscuring, non-obscuring. So we sort of simplified the ordinance and just addressed, the decorative characteristics of a fence, especially in the backyard. So that was sort of how we approached that conclusion.
Okay. And so what's before us is ultimately the introduction of the ordinance to make these amendments. And then at a future meeting, we would have a motion to adopt these changes and then put them into place. Any questions on the amendment, or the ordinance making the amendment? Hearing none, is there anyone willing to make a motion, or? Yeah.
My only concern, like, I think it's weird that our ordinance includes, like, vinyl coated chain link fence as decorative fencing. Like, I don't feel like that meets a decorative standard. I know I don't know if it's just outside of here, but it's, like, you're looking at it.
No, you're correct, that is considered a decorative fence.
Vinyl coated, not galvanized.
Right, that has not changed
I know, but
with the introduction of
Looking-
the changes.
I get it, but looking at it and making a change to it, I feel like if we're saying we want decorative fence, I don't think anybody's gonna go like, yeah, that's a classy looking vinyl cyclone fence you put up. Very decorative. I just feel like it misses the mark.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, I do think, when we think of fences, I think one of the tricky parts about this, at least from my perspective anyways, is that, sometimes the fence is, just, say for example, let's say if it's specific to a pet, and you say, well, I want something that I know that's containing, that's, animals aren't digging under, running through, whatever, like, I think that's kind of, like, sometimes you're kind of keeping the family together, you're stopping a neighbor from coming over, or the neighbor's pet from coming over. There certainly are times when I think folks would put up a cyclone fence, and at least one that's vinyl coated would be more attractive than one that's perhaps galvanized, but I understand your point just the same.
I do as well.
When you say vinyl coated, you mean when they slip the vinyl through the?
No, like literally there's a
Dip it,
coating
dip
applied.
Dip it,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, you'll see them, a lot of them are green.
Yeah.
And the
Green,
wires,
brown.
the wires are coated, the poles are coated, the
Right.
caps are coated.
Yeah, that's not very good.
Yeah. But it is, as a fence goes, it isn't, if you said, hey, I've got a pet and I want my pet to be able to run free in the yard, but I don't want it to be able to go next door. Some of the other fences that might be more decorative in nature aren't necessarily as secure, right? So this is kind of one of those things. As a kid growing up, I can remember different folks having cyclone fences in the backyard because it was kind of, they could let their dog out and the dog wouldn't run.
I know a lot of the communities that have homeowners associations too, they don't allow them,
They have more
They
restrictive.
have more restrictions in terms of what type of fences you can put up. So
Correct.
I'd be kinda curious to drive around the township and see exactly how many, metal fences or decorative fences we have in backyards and side yards. I don't really know. I understand where Mr. Witt's coming from, but I understand it, but I didn't look at it and think that was gonna be a problem, because I don't think a lot of new ones are gonna be put up. But
Well, and truly, in fairness, well, I recognize the clerk's comments that, I get where you're coming from. The reality is this isn't new language. We really haven't dealt with issues or conflicts because of this language in the past, so sometimes that isn't the reason to say, well, let's just roll with it, but it isn't a change.
No, I get it. It's
Right?
not a change. It's not, but if I'm gonna pay $1,000 to recodify an ordinance, I would prefer to bring up my concern now than go 6 months down the road, go like, hey, what about fences? And you're like, we just did it, man.
Yeah.
So we have a couple options here. We can actually make a decision to approve this with striking, vinyl coated fences as being decorative. Or we can, I guess we can I don't know if we can table.
We can do whatever. I mean,
Yeah, we definitely do not have to take action on this
And
and
I-
talk about it in 2 weeks.
you know, it-
We-
I just wanna add, everything that is bold and underlined is new,
Okay.
so it is
It is additional.
an additional, so it's defining a decorative fence.
So we could say then that,
Well, it's changing it, cause up above it had it before as decorative or vinyl coated.
Correct, I'm changing it
Yeah.
and adding.
Yeah.
and I,
Deleting and adding.
and all I would say is that, so that the item, the information before us is the result of the planning commission's efforts. It's not
Correct.
an oversight
Oh, no.
or, right? So,
Yep, no.
right, and there's value in recognizing that.
Yeah,
you know,
and again, this is, you know, we have an ordinance, it's intact. If you feel more comfortable, I'd love to bring that back. If you feel that, you know, that doesn't fit the model that we want in the township,
It's one board member's opinion.
No,
and
I know,
you
but-
and I respect that, like that, I understand that probably wasn't the issue that planning
It
commission was
wasn't,
reviewing.
but that
And I'm
makes
looking at it
sense.
as more of an opportunity at this point as we're
Sure.
looking at it, that,
Sure, I have no problem doing that. I think, we would probably need a motion to,
Actually, we wouldn't actually need a motion, right? I mean,
Change
if
it
it,
if you want to.
yeah, I mean, if you,
Yeah.
I mean, you're able to, we could modify it, but if you felt like it should go back before planning commission,
I don't
I don't
think-
think it takes action for you to agree to do that.
yeah, I mean, if Mr. Witt would like to make a motion and to remove vinyl coated fences from the decorative definition, I'd be fine with that.
I was bringing up more of as I don't wanna do, like, I know there's a lot of conversation about this, so like, I don't know.
Well, but that's why we have a liaison. I mean,
Yeah.
we're also, no small part of this is if you said, boy, you know, there's a lot of planning commissioners. We
No,
talked
no,
at great length
no,
about
no.
vinyl coated
We-
chain link fence.
We were trying to be, you know, as liberal as possible, and
Inclusive, right?
the whole thing is, you really don't see, that's not an excuse, but you typically don't see vinyl coated fences much more, because they're just as expensive as aluminum railed
The other
fence,
picket
body,
textile,
right,
yeah.
so you really don't see a lot of those anymore, you know, but they're still available. So if they're still available and somebody could put them up, it'd be easier just to strike the language as being decorative, and
Yeah.
we could make the modifications accordingly. And I'd be fine with that. And I think the planning commission would be fine with that as well.
I mean, I know that we were in a situation where somebody put in a brand new fence and you're like, oh, a nice fence, and they're like, well, no, it's galvanized, you know, galvanized fence, you're like, that
Yeah.
doesn't look great.
Let's say it, Adam, make the motion.
Well,
mean,
I'm listening, it was
2023,
more an idea.
that fence is
I like
kinda
it.
old
I like
technology,
it.
so if you think it's kind of outdated, make the motion.
Yeah, so we,
Don't expect one of us
we
old
could,
guys.
we could,
No.
we could make the changes and just, I
all
think the proper motion would be to make the changes as proposed by the planning commission, with the exception of vinyl coated fences, which will be stricken as a decorative,
Decorative option.
categorized as a decorative option.
I would
Is that your
actually
motion?
Probably just move it to say decorative fence materials include wrought iron, aluminum, wood, but not galvanized chain link, vinyl, or vinyl coated.
Okay,
Flip it.
okay.
Sure, so I'll make a motion to introduce the ordinance amending Article 6, Section 6.
And I'll support that, according to, the attorney's recommendation.
And are you comfortable that you captured the
Yeah,
proposed motion
yep.
from the attorney? All right.
Say it again.
We're introducing the ordinance, amending it to read, decorative materials include wrought iron, aluminum, wood, vinyl, but not vinyl coated chain link or galvanized chain link.
And that's from the first 30 feet of the seawall, correct?
Well, that's
As
section
it's
B of
stated, yeah,
four,
Section B
right?
of the ordinance, okay.
Right.
So anybody who has an old style chain link fence up right now, that's grandfathered.
That's
Oh, for sure, yeah, this is only for new, anything.
Yeah, and it's
moving
even,
forward.
like if somebody did repair, if the
Right.
Yeah,
pole got bent
exactly.
or whatever.
Yep,
So continued support,
I will support you.
okay? Everybody clear on that? Any discussion, questions?
No, I think it's a good change.
Okay. All right, hearing no discussion and seeing no public comment, does this require a roll call, Mr. Witt?
Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Tominelli?
Yes,
Mr. Backens is excused. Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes,
Mrs. Rose?
Yes,
Mr. Verkast?
Yes. Thank you, board. Next on our agenda, item F1 regarding the 41B District Court bond payment. Board members, last October when we approved the 41B District Court 2023 budget, we discussed the possibility of having to pay a portion of the 2023 bond payment. This is the bond which covered the cost to construct the court. 41B has historically finished prior years with a surplus, and that surplus was returned to Clinton Township, Mount Clemens, and Harrison Township based on the prior 5-year caseload average. Since 2009, 41B District Court has returned $402,088 to Harrison Township. Of course, COVID had a huge impact on how the court was operated, the amount of people, the amount of traffic in the court, the introduction of the Zoom meetings and hearings. And it has also had a ripple effect on the revenue sources for the court. The last surplus that 41B generated was in 2018. The surplus that we saw from the 2019 year was never distributed because, of course, we hit COVID in 2020. We were kind of in an unknown at the beginning of that year, and so the Court Management Council made the decision not to distribute any surplus from 2019. Since that change in how funding has occurred at 41B, the court has consumed their rainy day funds, and we are now faced with the need to help pay our share of the bond. Our share of the bond payment is also based on that prior 5-year caseload average, and as it figures as of today, our share of this year's bond payment is $82,902.96. Clinton Township financed the total debt of the court construction cost through an agreement between us, Harrison Township, Mount Clemens, and 41B Court. Obviously Clinton Township was a part of that. I didn't type that in there, but it was, 3 communities and the court working together. So Clinton Township actually holds that bond note, and they make the annual bond payment. Historically, the court has transferred funds to Clinton Township prior to April 1st, and Clinton Township would make that payment. I don't remember exactly, but probably 5 or 6 years ago, based on interest rates, we agreed to refinance that bond, which lowered the interest, but it extended the payment period. So again, Clinton Township did that, and we were able to take advantage of their good bond rating in order to do that. So at this point, we're looking at, for this year, the need to help the court make that bond payment. So ultimately, we're faced with this debt, which we were ultimately, I guess, committed to, 14, 15, 16 years ago. I don't remember exactly, but, before any of us were on the Board of Trustees. There's a lot of discussion. Let me say there's two big things happening that are important for us to understand right now. One is, it wasn't that long ago when, and I still certainly see this with residents and people that we interface with, where the very idea of how to, kind of a crime and punishment thing, you get caught, you get a speeding ticket. There's certainly a move and an effort toward trying to, for lack of a better word, change behaviors without necessarily issuing tickets. There's some issues, and our attorney might know better about this, but there are issues with saying, okay, well, if you can't pay a fine, it used to be, well, pay the fine or you go to jail. And there's a move within our society to recognize, well, then, maybe someone in a certain financial situation can pay that fine, but maybe someone else who might be a little bit more limited in their ability to pay the fine, just end up spending time in jail, which certainly doesn't help them get to a point where they could pay that fine at some point in the future. So there's definitely a shift on how the court system treats people. We know we have treatment courts. We have a veterans court, we have a drug, and we have sobriety courts. And there's a move, a shift toward trying to change behaviors and not necessarily just issue fines and court costs. Unfortunately, that's having an impact on revenue, and this is probably not a one-time issue. At the same time that we're talking about this, though, there's a recognition, so I'll give one example. Maybe individual A is faced with a DUI, and they happen to be of financial means where they can afford to pay some of the costs that are associated with a sobriety court. They go through a treatment process, there's a counseling process, there's testing, and the ultimate effort is to try to change that underlying behavior that led to drinking and driving, as opposed to just saying, pay this fine and fee. There's a recognition at a higher level, and there's some court cases that are, as I understand it, are at the state Supreme Court level that are saying, well, individual B doesn't have the money to go into this treatment court, so that, again, now they're faced with, they don't necessarily have that option of going through a treatment court and breaking that behavior, so now you're looking at some sort of jail or prison time. So the 41B judges are explaining that there's a lot of discussion at a higher level, and they believe also discussion between the Supreme Court, our state Supreme Court, and maybe leaders in the legislature to change how district court is funded. And while we don't know that that's going to happen, there's a lot of momentum in saying that this shouldn't be, these courts shouldn't be fee-based, or this notion of contributing as a part of our budget to keep this court going. A lot of our peers do this regularly. A part of their budget is we pay, just like we know we have to support our building department. We can't generate enough revenue from building fund building permit fees to support it. Similarly, some communities don't have a surplus. We've been lucky over the past few years. From what I know about this, I don't believe that we're going to be talking about $80,000 plus or minus a year for the next 10 years on this. But if something doesn't change in the way this is funded, this is probably what this might look like until that bond is paid off. So I'm comfortable in bringing this. I think this is the thing to do. I mean, at a bare minimum, if we've had $400,000 in revenue over the last, going back to 2009, I can at least do this for about 4 or 5 years and pretty much say we break even. But I do believe this issue is going to be resolved before that. So that's the best I can provide. I don't know if there's questions, issues.
In the end, we don't really have a choice.
This is not an option.
Right.
Right, yeah. We have, I mean, short of, sticking it to our neighbors and having them sue us and us just losing and paying legal fees, I mean, it's, right, we've agreed that we were taking on this debt. The problem is when our predecessors on this board did this in good faith, they had no idea that some 15 years later, the society would be changing how they fund the courts. So for right now, I think this is the right thing to do. I have a feeling, if I had to guess, I'm going to guess we're probably going to do this one more time, and I'll bet you by that time, this problem is solved. Don't have a crystal ball.
Yeah, and I maybe would, I agree with you, but I would probably modify a little bit. Like when this happened, I mean, like we paid for the court before. You know what I mean? Like having a court that you don't have to pay for is rare.
Right.
So it was through some prudent decisions when they set this court up with this consolidated location that we were able to have savings, and we made smart investments when we built that building originally to be able to have lower costs, and so that's a result of good planning, and the court continues to have good planning, and I know they're very thorough in pursuing grants and that kind of stuff to offset a lot of the programs they offer. So
they're ahead of the curve on the treatment and sobriety court concept, the Veterans Court. They're doing good work, but I do think this is indicative of a change in how people perceive, how issues, how infractions should be dealt with. So,
Can I ask a question real quick? I'm just looking at the financials. It says the bond payment is $841,952. If court uses a building fund and remaining due $592,164. So my first question would be, how many more years are left on the bond?
You know, we talked about it, I wanna say, and I apologize, I don't have that, I wanna say, gosh, something like 32 or 30, like, we're looking at 8, 10 years more. I know it's, my point was, well, I can tell you this. I can tell you when I thought about the 400,000 that we've received in revenue over the past 14 years, and I thought about 80,000 a year, you know, this isn't a break even. If we keep doing this until the bond is paid off, then, you know, we'd be on the losing end of things.
Yeah, and the reason I ask that is the fact that we're paying $82,902 this year. Clinton Township's paying $426,358, 72% over a 5-year average. It's not gonna be $82,000 a year because we would pay for that entire bond in 10 years if we were paying the $82,000. Mount Clemens is also paying it here, and Clinton Township is also paying. So, I mean, I don't have an issue with that. I mean, like you said, we don't have a choice, but.
Our annual payment on that, the commitment that the three communities and 41B committed to, 842,000 roughly.
Right.
And that varies from year to year, I believe.
That is the annual bond payment amount.
Right, but it varies,
Okay.
right? So 842 is what that's really what we're all on the hook for. But our agreement was that we would maintain a $1 million building fund before anybody would have before we'd call, so imagine day one, they say, okay, we're starting out. Well, we're not gonna consider any excess revenue a surplus until we build up a building fund of $1 million. That's part of the agreement amongst the three communities. So at this point, you know, we're all collectively saying, well, it makes no sense to leave $250,000 in the bank for the building fund when we can't even make the payment for the bond. So our agreement amongst the Court Management Council was to use that $250,000 from the building fund, which lowers that debt to $592, and then the 5-year caseload average is, you know, splits it up accordingly.
Okay.
There's a couple other moving parts in this, but I know that when the first time we saw this trend, the Clinton Township Board of Trustees ultimately made a motion to direct 41B to work with the state, SCAO is State Court.
Administrator's office.
Okay, State Court Administrator's Office, and they actually directed 41B to have for lack of a better word, an audit. So SCAO is that state level office that kind of oversees courts. So they came in, I think, in early 21, if I remember correctly, kind of went through 41B to say, is there an excess? Are you overstaffed? Is there an inefficiency? And bottom line was, their answer was no. So it isn't as if 41B is, overstaffed or, not doing the things they should do. We looked at the fee structure, because obviously there are still fees generated. We're not at the low end of that fee structure, so it isn't as if we're missing out on revenue in that sense. So we kind of dug in every corner. Court Management Council, the advice of the three communities was to make these contributions to help pay this debt. Any other discussion, or is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, got a motion by Mrs. Rose. Is there support?
I'll support the motion.
Okay, got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Olgiati to approve the payment of our portion of the 41B court bond debt for 2023 to Clinton Township in the amount of $82,902.96. We had some discussion. Is there further discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Board. Well, we agreed to strike F2 from the agenda. We will be talking about that at a future meeting, but next on our agenda is item G, public comment. So we'll open the floor for public comment. Comments can be about any subject you wish. We ask that you try to limit them to 5 minutes in length.
board members, residents, C. William Bardell, clean cut, do-gooder boy next door. 26-year resident, clean up, fix up, people helping people. I just want to remind everyone to please check out Save Lake St. Clair Facebook, follow, keep up to date on everything that's going on, and everyone try to take it easy this St. Patrick's Day season, and pace yourself, and spring's coming, and everyone stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Peter Grabowski, 31884 North River Road. I'm curious if there's any updates on the water meter situation in our township. We have a ton of information on our water bill, which is up to us to read, follow. And I received an estimated bill at the end of the last billing cycle last year. And I called because that's what you're instructed to do on your water bill. Understanding there's no parts to fix the current system. So where are we at with new system, or is there, I'm guessing that, this is a RFQ issue, a request for a quote. And I hear that it's been planned for this board meeting for a while, but it's not making the board meeting. So who has an update?
So during public comment, I won't answer that. Once we're finished with public comment, then we'll offer board comment. But if that's the extent of your question, I'm prepared to answer that. But if there's other comments you have.
Oh, that's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment and we'll move back to board comment. So, we've gone through multiple generations of meter reading systems. Our most current system, or our existing system, is not township-wide. It's in a majority of the township customers. And it is an electronic system that sends a signal, takes a mechanical reading, converts it to a digital signal, and sends that directly to us daily. That system was right around, I'm going to say 10 or 11. I want to say 2010 when we made the decision to go with that. Those sending units are sealed units, and that's not unique to that system. All of the systems that we're aware of that are available today are kind of a sealed, battery-installed type electronic sending unit. When that battery goes, it's a disposable unit. They typically, right in today's technology, the device that sends that signal to antennas that ultimately come here to our offices are supposed to be a 10-year guaranteed life, and then anytime after 10 years, that life is prorated. The actual life of those sending units really tends to vary. We've seen units go longer than others. We've seen units fail before 10 years. We've reached the point from a supply perspective that the current manufacturer of our system is giving us 4 to 6 month, I think 24 weeks is the current lead time to be able to order new units. So as a unit is failing now, we've reached the point where the supplier is saying, well, 5 or 6 months, we can send you some more. And while that, we're kind of stuck there, at the same time, we're having some challenges with the support that manufacturer is offering us, software challenges, other issues. So we've come to the conclusion that trying to maintain our existing system is really not a practical solution. Trying to continue a relationship with a supplier that's not only able to give us parts, but is giving us really low-quality customer service is just not sustainable. We've identified, I think our initial round was we looked at 3 manufacturers. The problem was in order for us to ask this board to make a decision on what to purchase and what to move forward with for likely a period of time that none of us will be here, right? I mean, I can't talk to who's going to be around when, but we're probably talking about making a decision this spring for a system that's probably got a minimum 12-year life, and if we have a good relationship, maybe we continue with that same supplier. It could be a 20-year relationship or more. if I'm gonna ask this board to spend millions of dollars and make a commitment of, you know, over 10 years, we've gotta really have something better than what we have so far in terms of proposals from the various manufacturers. So we met to discuss this, in December. We met, a week or two ago, and we met just, recently at the end of it. Yeah, well, we met today with one of the suppliers. The good news is, the suppliers of these sending units, they've got a couple different options, they've got more advanced software. We're seeing that as the cost of water goes up, the temptation for a certain number of individuals to try to commit fraud or steal that water, or try to pay less than what they should, whatever you wanna call it, is also incentivized. So the transmission device manufacturers are developing ways to kind of catch those things. So at this point, we believe we've kind of narrowed down what that scope of work is gonna look like. I know that there were some folks maybe a little more optimistic on what that timeline would take, but unfortunately, you know, you've gotta have, you know, at least 3 comparable quotes. They've gotta be in the same format. We don't necessarily have to go with the lowest cost if we think that, you know, supplier A has the lowest, but supplier B is slightly more, but they have a much better product. There's some value in that. When we, as the full-timers working with Water and Sewer Department, believe we have a good handle on what those options are, we intend to bring it forward to the board first, initially in the form of a workshop, because this is a big decision. The good news is, one of the suppliers we talked to today said, if you went with us right now, we could begin to install these. There are decisions with whether or not we try to do the installs, or whether we work with the supplier who might engage a third party, so that if we do make a decision this spring, perhaps by the end of this year, the vast majority of homes can all be on one system, which is gonna eliminate a lot of these issues. But in the meantime, there are a handful, handful is a kind of a generic word, but there are customers who are reaching the point where their system isn't any longer able to send a signal, and we're not able to provide a new sending unit. So we're kind of stuck a little bit. This supply chain issue is not something we would have anticipated, but it's something that we're dealing with. So to the residents' question, I guess I would say, when is this going to happen? We're probably looking at a workshop in the next few weeks. And based on the results of that workshop, ultimately a recommendation to move forward with a system. I wouldn't suggest that, knowing it's March 13th today, it's possible by the second meeting in April we could be making a decision. But if you ask me to bet, I would say we're probably looking at May before we as a board of trustees is making a decision on what system to go with, how to pay for that, and how to proceed.
And it's not a quick thing. This is like, if people think like, oh, it's just meters. Like, how much could that be? $1? It's a multi-million-dollar purchase.
Yeah. And the technology is advancing. So one of the things that kind of throws a wrench into this is whether or not we replace all of the meters as well as all of the electronic sending devices. And there's pros and cons to that, and again, it's like a lot to digest. So before we're gonna talk about it, before I can say, hey, this is a suggestion of the way I think we should go, there's a lot of information to harvest. So I know we closed public comment, but it doesn't prevent us from talking after the meeting because we're at the end of the agenda. So I don't want to ignore, I know you made some gestures, but ultimately if we engage in a back and forth, I've got to put you on the microphone because folks at home can't hear it. But yeah, so we'll give it a minute here because I don't know if there's any other announcements or board comment. If there are no other board comments, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn. All right, is there support? All right, got a motion by Mr. Olgiati with support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, board.